Steph Bot. Oh, you could not be more wrong. Every objectivist or person on this side that believes this way about objectivity, certainly the objectivists that have interesting ideas about science, you all, you all to a man, everyone I've ever engaged in conversation will admit that there's not certainty. That we don't have all the facts. More facts could come in, all the rest. Because you endorse empiricism enough to realize that. But you still are like, oh, but we need the concept. Oh, but you'll never actually exercise it. You'll never exercise the concept. But oh, we got to have it. Irrational certainty comes from a belief in certainty. If people actually didn't believe in certainty, you couldn't have irrational certainty, could you? No, because there would be no certainty, irrational or rational. And what you have in reality is relative amounts of certainty. You don't have to know something is absolutely true or false. You just have to know that it's relatively true, like more than all the competing ideas or more than a total fantasy. You don't need, the only reason to endorse this certainty, the only reason that a belief in relativism leads to irrational certainty is the fact that emotionally certainty works, that human beings are looking for certainty, that they're reaching out to it, trying to cling to it and draw it in close to them. And that is a social phenomenon. The human brain does not need to think that way. The human brain is able to think about relative certainty, and as a matter of fact, throughout the entire ages where objective certainty has been accepted by philosophers, by those who do accept it, people have always believed relative certainty. I mean, supposedly, relative certainty is like a little bit pregnant, and yet people talk about it, certainty that way. And they talk about pregnancy that way too. And it's a trope. They're wrong. Well, no, it's because there's always a way to put relativity onto something because you can always grade things and then you're always comparing things. You're always comparing things. How do you guys deal with Galilean relativity? The fact that there is no such thing as a single object in itself having a velocity or not having one, it's always relative to another object. Do you say, well, we have to say there is certainty because we got its relative velocity in relation to all these other bodies, and we made a calculation, we'll call that certainty. You need to face that. There can't be an objective reason that you need that because objectively, you have limited facts. Okay, even without quantum mechanics or a million of the arguments of skepticism, you just know that there's a fact collecting is an ongoing process, right? And so there can't be an objective reason that you need it. It's got to be a rhetorical reason. It's got to be because you want to convince somebody, and before you can convince them, you need to have them believe there is certainty. Then you could tell them a truth, and even though that truth is not certain, and it's not certain because there's more fact, it's close enough, and you could convince them. But that's not very objective, is it? No, that's rather less than objective. It's not even just subjective, it's manipulative. Okay, it's an incoherent, invalid, self-contradictory position in order to convince people. And if it was the only way to convince people, fine. And a lot of politicians find themselves in that position. Oh, I have to convince people. I'm absolutely certain. But those of us that believe in science, such as yourself, know there are other ways to convince people of things, right? You can convince somebody that the earth does not move because you can show them the evidence. Look, nothing seems like it's moving. Then you can stretch that evidence out into celestial mechanics and go, look, there is evidence that it's moving. We're just moving with it. That's why it seems like it's not moving. And that it can be very convincing, can it? Why on earth would that not be good enough? That's what I would like to know. Why would that not be good enough?